are put online. That's one of the reasons why we do the hybrid option, is it makes it so easy for us to share these, save them and share them online. So if at any point you want to go back and watch all of the online, that's one of the watch all of our programs. We of course invite you to do that. Let me just get right in there. So I just want to say to those of you who've made it through all 3 weeks, thank you. I think this is probably my best attended program that I've offered in the last year and a half. So it's obviously something that is interesting to many of us, and I think it has been made more interesting because of your interest. So the other thing I just want to begin with is a small word of welcome. The Barbers just welcomed a new grandchild. A granddaughter was born about 4:30 this afternoon. So mom and baby are doing well, and that's a legitimate excuse for not coming to tonight's class. So yeah. So the question kind of right from the get-go is, did anything kind of come up? I've got 2 slides. Kristen Kane in Hawaii, who's joining us online, had something that I'll call out in the next slide. The one thing I just kind of wanted to show us is what an acanthus plant looks like. I forgot it in the office.
Oh, go grab it.
You sure? Okay, thanks. So this is an image from someone who did a miniature version of the St. Stephen's banner, and it's ringed in acanthus. And you can see, I hope pretty clearly, it's too late for me to ask him to get more thing. Kind of where the swirls, if you look right here, you can kind of see the swirls that we might see at the noon, 10, and 2 positions. So the acanthus is kind of represents 2 things. So in the Mediterranean, it represents enduring life and immortality. As John Donnelly said last week, it's also the same plant that adorns the top of all those Corinthian columns, so the most ornate of those Greek-style columns. In medieval times, though, it becomes a symbol of Christ's passion. Acanthus plants actually become the kind of crown of thorns for Jesus. So it also begins to represent kind of sin and punishment. So it's strange to have a single plant. Oh, thank you. So here's the acanthus plant. So this is what I took a picture of right here. So you can kind of see the swirls, and this fabric doesn't quite highlight the thorns that are part of the acanthus plant. But I think when you look, thank you, Ryan. If you look here, you can kind of see both leaf and thorns, particularly kind of right in here. So was that, Marnie, was that your catch, the acanthus? I can't remember who caught.
It was Barbara.
That's right, Barbara Beisel, who reached out to Mel Alborn. Yeah. Perfect.
Is the leaf itself fairly stiff and thorny, kind of like a olive bush or something?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at it.
If you're going to make a crown of thorns, it's got to be fairly stiff so it hurts.
The plant looks kind of like artichoke plant. It's got
That's a good, yeah.
spiny kind of pointed leaves.
Yeah, so if you look right here, thank you, Betsy. I think, this definitely reads artichoke-y. There's the flowers. Great catch. So, perfect. Then I got a great email from Kristen Kane last week, who gave us a little bit of some background or some more information on, we kind of got stuck on the 10 cups. So we thought maybe they're the vessels that hold the wine, and if Jesus has one and Judas is out the door, then we have enough for everybody who's left. Kristen Kane shared that in Jewish numerology, 10 represents both authority and completeness. So we think of the 10 Commandments, right? 10 is a very common number. It's also significant in that it represents kind of a whole made of many parts. So certainly the disciples, soon to be the apostles, represent that kind of cohesive system made up of smaller parts. So, but is there anything else that kind of came up? Any other observations? Did anyone do their own guided tour on Sunday after church and see something they might have missed or we might have missed? Okay. Perfect. Well, I just want to kind of say that I think the wonderful thing about this class is that it's proof that the learning doesn't end, that we're just kind of moving into a prolonged wondering phase. But a lot of what we're going to do is going to be taken together and formed into a book that will become a self-guided tour of the stained glass of St. Stephen's. And so I'm hoping that'll be out kind of before Easter is the hope. So, great. So tonight what we're going to do is we've got a few installations to get to. So we're going to start at the front of the church. We're going to finish the gospel stories with the resurrection and the ascension windows. We have one stained glass that represents the book of Acts and the story of Pentecost. So it's kind of in a not often seen corner of the church these days. We've also got the patriarch's window, which is above the doors of the front doors of the church. The archangel's installation, which is above the old front doors of the church and the old narthex. We've also got a stairway and a library installation to go through as well. And then we'll finish real quick with those kind of heraldic crosses of the chapel. Go back to authorship just for a quick moment. So all of the Mandelbrot installations, the ones that are kind of at eye level, were the work of A.L. Cartwright, who we mentioned in the first class. When we get to the installations in the transept, and I'll explain what that is when we get there, that's the work of Bill Runstrom, who was a stained glass artist here in the East Bay. We actually know a little bit about him. We even got a picture of him that we'll share later on when we get to his work around St. Stephen's. So, but we have no record of who did these stained glass windows that are on either side of the church, or either side of the cross behind the altar. Just a reminder from our first class, these are not the original windows to our the stained glass installation. So we had something that looked very different, probably more similar to what we'll call the gospel windows. That picture from week one, I do my best to blow it up, but so this is a new installation, probably dates to when the jadeite cross was installed in about 1972. But it's a very different, it's a different artist, a much more modern style, kind of a mid-century style. And not for nothing, it's the only two installations that actually give the biblical verse in the window. So this is the resurrection window. So if you're looking up, this is the window that's on the left. So we're kind of going back to that clockwise tour around the church. This is in memory of Martha Ann and Frank Shore, as well as Gertrude and Edward Sparling. We'll take a quick look at this, and then we'll do that kind of long look. Gesundheit. So this is it references the book of Matthew, so we're going to use Matthew's resurrection. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descending from heaven came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. For fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, as he said. Come and see the place where he lay." So what do we notice, and what might we be wondering about?
That white as snow robe is red.
Oh, so the white robe is belongs to the angel.
Isn't that the angel?
Nope, that's Jesus.
Oh,
Yeah, I was confused by that too.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at the palm, so the palm and then the back of the hand of Jesus both bear the marks of the crucifixion. And then I'll try to point it out as we zoom in. It's hard because there's an architectural crossbar. But what I think that underneath Jesus's ribs here, we have another mark of the crucifixion, the stab wound. I think that's here. I was hoping we could see it from outside the church to see behind the bar what might be there, but it's always been front lit, not backlit, so it's been hard to see. But here kind of clearly is the marks of the crucifixion. So yeah, so that definitely, to me, reads as Jesus.
and then the figure at the bottom does,
Roman soldier.
I'm sorry,
A Roman soldier?
how interesting
Yeah.
that the three, well, the women are so central to that and they're not there.
Thank you for noticing.
Oh,
Yeah,
did I get a gold star?
you did. Well, and so the other thing is that according to Matthew, Jesus isn't there either.
Right.
So the
The tomb is empty.
yeah, and so it's kind of an imagined scene, but not quite what Matthew reports to us.
And so Jesus has risen. But this is how many days after the
3 days. So sorry, I'm just going to share.
Emmaus?
I'm sorry, what?
The next time we see him is on his way to Emmaus or to the,
Not in Matthew's gospel. So the episode on the walk to Emmaus is a story that only happens in Luke's gospel. So if the artist is going to quote Matthew, I'm going to keep us in Matthew. Oops, we got the wrong. I'm opening every app but the one I want. There's my second shot playing golf. That's what I was left with. All right, here we go. Just in case we need to zoom in on anything. Get to finish downloading. Yeah, so here now we can kind of zoom in. So there we can kind of see the marks on both the hands. What else do we notice?
It's the first time I ever saw Jesus look like Sir Walter Wallace.
Okay,
I was gonna say, he must have gone to the hairdresser on the way through.
he's got some lovely framing curls, doesn't he? Yeah.
His side is very gaunt, his ribs are showing.
Yeah.
Is that his wound in his side?
I think so, yeah. Ryan and I had a debate as to wound or nipple. I'm going to argue wound, but yeah.
and then on his forehead, is that just trying to get the dimension or the 3D effect, or is that a scar of the crown?
Great. I don't know.
Is it even
I think it might just be,
trying to get to the 3D?
Shadowing, yeah.
yeah. But a great thing to look at. I think, what I'm struck by is that Jesus is not at all concerned with the soldier, right? He seems to be looking completely past him. We've got some, what read to me as lilies, not kind of the Easter calla lilies that have just the one funnel, but this is the 5 petal, just a normal lily. The Roman soldier here is carrying literally a fascia, which is where we get the word fascism from, right? So a bundle of sticks around an axe is a symbol of Roman authority. It's a symbol that many different cultures have used since the Roman Empire. There happen to be 2 in the US Senate, and I think 2 in the House as well, right?
I think the Senate's the only one who has it. Well,
Okay.
makes their mace.
Yeah.
Can you point out where that is?
The shield.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Emblem on the shield.
yeah. Yeah, so this is,
It's on the arms of Lincoln's throne, I guess, in the memorial.
yeah. But the,
That shield looks like a miniature too in later time.
so is this, I think this is the well of the house, right? Yeah, so so there's a,
There.
yeah, so on either side, is this the well of the house?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so when we get to it's not called the State of the Union in a president's first year, the report, when President Trump gives what we would commonly call the State of the Union address, look on either side of the flag and you'll notice the same fascia there, so.
That mace in the corner is also a fascia, in some sense. It's a bundle of sticks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the other thing I would say to notice is that Jesus is prefigured as an Episcopalian here. Jesus seems to have the cross of St. George behind his head in the halo. He also has that same cross of St. George, which again, I usually associate with the image of the Lamb of God, right? Normally, the Lamb of God is holding the staff with that trailing flag, the cross of St. George. But yeah, I think what's interesting about this to me is Jesus is here and the women are not, so.
Is the guard sleeping or just?
What do you think? Because it looks more reverent than sleeping to me.
Yeah, isn't there a story in one of the Gospels about a centurion who says surely he was the Son of God,
That's in Mark.
but it's in a different gospel?
Well, so it's in Mark and it's at the death of Jesus.
In chapter 27 in Matthew, there is like the guard passed out.
I thought actually in the one that you showed, it said that the guards were as if dead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
well,
was in the one you read.
yeah, so Matthew gives us a middle chapter of the events of Holy Saturday, where the synagogue leaders go to Pilate and said, hey, listen, his disciples are going to steal the body, and when they lie about Jesus being resurrected, it's going to be even worse for all of us. So it's the tomb is sealed in Matthew's gospel in a way it isn't in the other 3 gospels. And then following this, Matthew gives a report of, there's kind of we're told that the guards admit that Jesus was raised from the dead, but then they have to recant their story, but they didn't mean it. And so there's this kind of double recantation of what they were eyewitnesses to. All I can say is if you're interested in the differences between the 4 Gospels and the Passion narrative, stick around. We'll be back in 2 weeks. That's all we're going to talk about is the Passion narrative and the kind of small but significant differences and what that might mean for the author, the evangelist of the 4 Gospels, and for us as readers of the Gospel. Any other thoughts? Okay. So Ryan will lead you through the Ascension.
So the Ascension, Acts 1, which is the second part of Luke's gospel. Yep, no worries.
Thanks for catching that.
But so Acts is Luke part 2, and it's all the events that happened after. It's the Acts of the Apostles. And the very first thing that pretty much happens is Jesus' ascension. So when they had come together, they asked him, Lord, is this the time when you will restore the kingdom of Israel? He replied, It is not for you to know the times or the periods that the Father has set by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witness in Jerusalem, in all of Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. When he had said this, as they were watching, he was lifted up, and a cloud took him out of their sight. While he was going and they were gazing up towards heaven, suddenly 2 men in white robes stood by them, and they said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking up towards heaven? This Jesus who has been taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven." So let's take some time of noticing and wonder. Can we change the color on there?
It's a little bright.
Just like it looks really.
Yeah, it's washed out. I wonder if it'll get better on when we zoom in.
Okay.
But no, yeah, it's really washed out.
Looks really great on the screen.
Yeah. Maybe if I open the photo a little different.
Yeah. So I guess what have you noticed?
One of the things,
Fair?
one of the things I noticed about both of these is that there's a border of the Royal Navy blue around, which I wonder if that was an attempt by this later artist to kind of tie in with the color of the rest of the windows in the church. So in this one, that looks kind of, like I say, the color's not, but that, yeah.
Yeah, it reads more purple in person, but I still think you're onto something. Yep. Yeah, unfortunately I wish I could. It looks more purple than it does on the screen. We're just kind of getting a little washed out. But I absolutely think you're right, Betsy. Yeah.
He appears to be wrapped in some sort of shawl or scarf or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the Orens, ORENS posture is this one?
More like that.
Yeah.
Which this is the actual way, or like of ancient prayer, was to have your hands like this. This is actually a sign of fealty. Only really came out in the Middle Ages that when you put your hands together, this is prayer because you're swearing fealty to God, but this is what you did to your Lord in the medieval age. And they would wrap their hands around you as a sign of dominance. I'm better than you, I guess. But this is the ancient way of praying, is orans. And that's why priests actually have their hands raised like this when they say the Eucharist. I would be honest, I thought it was a really odd position of Jesus. It's not how I actually picture the Ascension. I think of more proper orans, not like this. But his feet are off the ground, so he is being raised up.
And it may be hard to see, but an inkling of the wounds of the crucifixion are still on his feet there.
Do we know who James and John are the two people on the ground?
Yes, by the apostles have colors associated with them, and we think from their hats, or from their head wrappings, the purple, which is this one, in red as well. That would be James and John, the brothers, the sons of Zebedee. And the blue would be Andrew. Yeah. Anything else that you've noticed?
No, but in the past, not in the picture, but in the passage, there's that statement that God, or Jesus makes when he says, no one knows the hour my Father cometh, which reflects back, or I guess this passage reflects back to that, when he says, you don't know when my Father will. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My favorite thing about Ascension art is normally we just have, it's much later in the Ascension, and it's usually clouds with feet sticking out of them. So when we zoomed in that, and we kind of panned down to the bottom, that's what I associate a lot with Ascension photos. Clark, did you have a question or a notice?
Okay, what is it? Clouds on white is green, how black is blue?
Yeah, they are different colors, even though they're a little washed out here. Yeah, they are different colors. I can give you a Sharpie, maybe, and we'll get it.
Yeah.
My lips really hurt.
All right, so this is the Pentecost window. This is the first window that is not currently dedicated to anyone. Bidding will begin at $5,000. No. So this is returning back to our kind of classic mandala shape. This is in the old narthex, where the choir vests now. So if you start at the font and move towards the narthex, which is actually this way, it'll be on your left. So it's facing the D. Seifert Memorial Garden. So we're back to kind of our classic shape. This comes from Acts chapter 2. So this is the only time we get from the book of Acts in the mandala style. Obviously, the Ascension is also from the book of Acts as well. When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. And suddenly from heaven there came a sound like the rush of a violent wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. Divided tongues as of fire appeared among them, and a tongue rested on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit, and they began to speak in other languages as the Spirit gave them ability. So we can take a look.
And this artist is not the same one that did all the other ones?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. I think this is a Cartwright installation.
It's white. It's just a color thing.
Yeah. So what do we notice?
12
Yep.
disciples, or apostles, I guess they are now.
Yep. I forgot those are auto leading. Yeah. So what the inset picture is this is the baptism of Jesus. So we can kind of see some shared iconography between the descent of the Holy Spirit at Jesus' baptism, along with the Holy Spirit appearing in Pentecost. There is no spirit of, the Spirit rests on them like a divided tongue. So this is kind of a just recalling that the Holy Spirit often appears as a dove, even though that image isn't reported at this particular scene in Acts. So one thing to note So Jesus ascends, and one of the first things the now apostles recognize is that 12 is an important number in Jewish numerology, and so they need to replace Judas immediately. And so they come up with a list of criteria for what constitutes an apostle. They had to be with us during Jesus's preaching, and they had to see the resurrected Christ. And so there's 4 people who meet that criteria, and they cast lots, they throw dice, and it comes up to Matthias. So we noted in earlier depictions of the 12 disciples, before Easter, they're disciples, after they're apostles, that the clean-shaven one is usually Judas. We return to a clean-shaven apostle, but we can now only imagine that this is Matthias here. I think, when we saw the Sermon on the Mount, we kind of had some creative counting. I think it's just really, it's a remarkable piece of stained glass just to literally have 12 faces. This is the most updated photo, along with the Last Supper. There seems to be a variety of hand positions. I think this disciple has a broken wrist because I can't figure out how he does that. Yeah. So, and then, so it's maybe hard to tell, but you can see there's these little red flames above the apostles. And then the medallion also has 12 flames as well. So. Any other noticings? Any questions or wonderings?
I have a question
Yeah.
for Ryan. So on the, you said that there was a color that represented each apostle, or each apostle was represented by a color.
Mhm.
Is that true in this depiction?
I think so. I don't remember the colors off the top of my
Yeah, let me-
head, so I can Google that real quick.
You want me to look it up?
Sure.
I have a more ignorant question.
Nope, there are no ignorant questions.
Ask away.
Where's the Apostle Paul coming into all this?
That's a great question. That's not an
Yeah.
ignorant question.
It's chapter 5, right?
No, Saul doesn't show up until chapter 8 with the stoning of Stephen.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So Paul stones Stephen, then given new orders to go to Damascus. On the road to Damascus, has this whole vision of seeing Jesus, scales go over his eyes, and then he's in a inn for like 3 days. The scales remove. He sees this vision of Jesus, and he's like, "Okay, I'm following you now." And then later on, because he's had a risen Jesus experience.
And they retroactively make him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he founds most of Christianity and writes
Yeah.
2/3 of our New Testament.
Yeah.
Yep. About a third.
Okay.
Yeah, Luke writes about 45% of the New Testament. So if you take Luke and Acts, that's more than just about half. John's got about 20%. Yeah, so it's about 40%. I shouldn't scoff. I contributed nothing, so.
Is there any indication as to where this window existed in the original building before it was moved to the new, what is now the old new Martha?
No, so so if we get a sense that the old doors of the church there was stained glass on the on the west facing wall. When we built out the narthex or the transept, those windows got rotated 90 degrees, so that's why we have the single installation of the Sermon on the Mount on the elevator side or at the top of the stairs. And then the wedding at Cana on the passage, so by where you pick up your name tags, on the passageway to the old narthex. I have no idea where this came from, and maybe that's the reason why it doesn't have a dedication, is it might be maybe the artist return for this one piece. Yeah, we have very little information about the stained glass.
There's an exterior photo of the original back wall, with a former rector standing in front of it.
Yeah.
In the library. And there it depicts, seems to depict two windows, one on either side of the door. So I had always kind of assumed that those were the two that made it into the kind of firewall. But maybe that's all not correct. I don't know.
No, I think, that's what I think. I just think that they used to be here, and then they got brought out and rotated 90 degrees.
Yep.
Yes, that's what I think. It's the most plausible.
Realistic.
Yeah. So Simon is fiery red, Andrew calming blue, James and John electric purple, Philip analytical green, Bartholomew or Nathaniel, the genuine beige.
I love the descriptions of these
That-
colors.
I know that, I was just about to say, that sounds like Kelly Moore.
Plain vanilla.
Yeah, or French coffee.
Transformative gold,
So-
questioning gray.
Yeah,
I guess I would say the colors are in there, but I don't think they're on the right people. Because you remember we said like Peter is balding, and Peter's definitely wearing a purple robe. Or
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
And
go
he's
on.
supposed to be in red. So
Yeah,
I think there's attempts to get the colors in there, but not
yeah.
on the right people.
So, so this one looks genuine gold. Transformative gold, excuse me, sorry, genuine beige. Gosh, it's hard to tell. Maybe this, it's,
Questioning, right?
yeah. Yeah, questioning red. The gentle pink, fierce maroon, hopeful orange, balanced brown, yeah.
Complex black.
Like football teams, let's pick out
Well,
colors for the school and the football teams.
yeah, I just get paint, like, if I could have any job in the world, it would be naming paint colors. I mean, it just,
And did you know that those names are copyrighted?
I'm sure they are, yeah.
So some other, Sherwin-Williams cannot use Benjamin Moore's name.
Yeah, and what always frustrates me when they go out of stock, so we painted Abby, we did all, for Abby's nursery, we did Disney colors. So we had Christopher Robin at waist level and below, then we had a Bibbidi Bobbidi Blue, a Cinderella stripe, and then above that was something pink related to Sleeping Beauty. I can't remember what it was, but we had to go back when we moved houses and we wanted to paint the Abby's room the same colors. I need Bibbidi Bobbidi Blue. And the guy was like, what are you on? I said, you obviously don't have a daughter and not a Disney fan, so.
I get, what is the color of your red door?
Oh, do you know?
I don't. I just know like, so the church I left, we did a big capital campaign and we wanted to put in a brand new front door, red. And so I called like 7 Episcopal churches in like the New York area. And they all told me the same color of heartthrob red. And so funny talking to like our contractor saying, we want heartthrob red. I've confirmed this with like 7 different Episcopal churches. I think Sherwin-Williams.
Yeah. John Clark or Mike, do you have any idea? Does heartthrob red,
It's a name you'd remember, so.
does not ring a bell, okay.
That's like who's buried in Grant's tomb.
Red. So what, for the patriarch window, so this is the window that's above the front west doors of the church. We'll take a look at the whole thing now, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of slice each of the patriarchs and just kind of take that. So this will be the best time to talk about the upper tier. It will be in this slide, but then we'll kind of take these 3 one by one.
That's kind of sneaky the way they got that cross in there. I never noticed that.
At the top?
That's cool, right?
Yeah,
The rising sun and the cross.
yeah.
I don't know if it's a trick of the camera, but the blues seem to be lighter.
I think it's just washed out. Yeah, so I think the other problem is, so Stan actually took this photo with a drone. And I think he took it late afternoon, and I think it's almost too bright behind it. So particularly like when some of the other photos looking up. Yeah, I just, I'll try and redo the photos, but, oh, here it is. So this is a little bit closer to what it reads color-wise on a semi-cloudy day, or at least not after light pouring right on it. So, yeah, this is morning light, so it's indirect light. So, yeah, they read much deeper blue. So, all right. So again, we'll take the three panels of Paul Stephen and Peter Stephen all individually. But if we look at the whole patriarch window, notice and wonder. So anything in the big window, particular, maybe just like in the top third.
The two figures below,
Yep.
who are they?
I think they're just angels. Let me. Yeah, we'll go through the rooster when we go through Paul. Where are you? You're here somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me. All right. So. So here we'll focus in on Peter. Ignore the spider web.
I have a question as we get to all of
Yeah.
their feet. Are they ascending or is that just their feet? Like hopping down?
I don't know.
And he's the only girl.
Yeah. Mhm.
Obviously, he has keys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that the cross of Lorraine?
Mhm. A budded cross of Lorraine, so. And what can only looks like Swiss cheese on either side.
I have no clue what that is actually for.
The cross of Lorraine or the Swiss cheese?
The Swiss cheese.
Yeah, okay.
But I guess what have you noticed? Do I have to go back or forward?
Forward.
So,
He has his fish.
yep.
His feet there. And his chicken. He has his rooster.
What do you why do you think there's a rooster and a fish?
It's the three times denying Jesus before the cock crows.
Yep.
Yeah, you gave that one away.
Yeah.
And the fish is because of the fishing.
There's also the passage in John, though, where he has to say he loves Jesus at the sea, right?
Yeah, 3 times.
3 times as well. So I think you described this before at the first class, right? But the association between you see,
Yeah.
the rooster and then his redemption. So where he failed and him being redeemed.
And then this is, John 22 is also where we catch exactly 153 fish, which is the ratio of the Mandalra width by height. 153 to 256 is so there was some mathematics. The ratio is equivalent to the square root of 3. So, all sorts, we can go all the way down the rabbit's hole. So. Does anyone recognize those keys? They're very particular.
The key.
The keys,
The red and the white.
they're silver and gold.
Oh.
Yep. Is there a vexologist among us? Anybody study flags? What's the smallest country on earth? The Vatican. So these are the Vatican keys upside down. So there's a small difference in the kind of the Greek key style, but it's almost exact upside down copy of the keys that are the symbol of the Vatican.
And they're not Greek letters. If they were turned the other way, would they be Greek letters?
No, I think they're just kind of just keys. Yeah.
Partly upside down because of his crucifixion.
Oh, didn't think of that.
They're upside down because of King Henry.
Yeah. Both are great guesses. I have no idea, but yeah.
He almost looks like he's wearing a crown. He has a halo,
Yeah.
but the flourishes above his head are.
Yeah.
And he also has hair, and he's not supposed to have hair, right?
It looks like it is receding a bit. It's not as full as the other two.
Yeah. It's a lot like what I see in the mirror.
What?
A papal crown.
I mean, a mitre, like the bishop's hat.
Well, not a mitre, but doesn't the Pope get a
They haven't since John Paul, but they've gotten rid of the papal tiara, is what it's called.
Yeah, so I think, the end, John chapter 22 is when we get Peter restored. So that's the second ending in the Gospel of John. So they all go fishing, they see Jesus. Peter is fishing naked for some reason. If you think I'm kidding, read it, he really is. Awkward for everybody else in the boat. But the end of the gospel, or the penultimate verse, talks about how when you were a child, Peter, you fastened your belt and went where you wanted to go. Soon you will be led to some place where you will not get to choose. This was to indicate the manner in which he was going to die. John, the author of the Gospel of John, knew and had seen, or may have at least had heard reported, Peter's death. It's really interesting to me that they were using the cross of Lorraine and not an upside down cross that we would commonly associate with Peter. The cross of Lorraine kind of shows up. Joan of Arc is, I think, the first person to use it. It becomes the symbol of the French resistance in World War II. The Free French. And all that budded means is at the end of all of the arms, we get the kind of circles. There's a difference between the cross of Lorraine. So if you were to take, once we eliminate the crossbar, we have 4 equal arm lengths. It becomes a patriarchal cross if we have the same thing where the bottom arm is twice as long as the other 3. So that's the difference between a patriarchal and a cross of Lorraine, is where that crossbar is in relation to the length of the thing.
Churchill said, of all the crosses I have to bear, the heaviest is the cross of Lorraine, referring to Charles de Gaulle.
Oh.
Also the symbol for the 79th Infantry Division, which is a U.S. Army division in World War I.
Oh, really?
I used to wear that patch.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
McDonald's outside Philadelphia, and a very elderly lady came up to me and said, my father had a patch like that from the Great War. And there's not too many people that call World War I
the Great War
these days. This is 3 years ago.
Nice.
She didn't believe your father. I think she figured that out pretty quickly.
Yes. So here is St. Paul. So this is on the other side. We're saving Stephen for last.
You know, that artist did a good job of that.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
In all those, in all
The
those
feathers, the pen?
spaces, especially that one at
where?
Christ when he said.
I'll show it to you.
The Ascension.
So I just noticed something right now that I have not seen
Shoes.
in a month. I love looking at this stained glass because I've been looking at this for a month and I just saw something I've never seen before. So let me, Oh, where is it? Shucks, okay, I'll go back. So what I just noticed is, what are the two things Paul is holding? Sword, what's the other thing? I just saw it.
Feather,
Yep, he's holding a quill.
because he wrote so
Yeah.
many letters.
Yeah.
So here, before it just read as a part of his wardrobe, but yeah, so he's got he's holding a sword and a quill. So there's two possible reasons why Paul is holding a sword. So one is he's often shown carrying a sword as a reference to his own martyrdom, that he was killed by the sword. But the other, and I think what we're getting here, because there's other clues to this, is it's recalling his letter to the Ephesians, where he speaks of putting on the armor of God in Ephesians 6, 11, and 12. And then a few verses later it says, and we are to take the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. The Latin next to his feet, Spiritus Gladius, translates to the sword of the Spirit. So I think we're clearly referencing his letter to the Ephesians. Next to Paul, so on our left, his right, is what looks like a book, because he was the author of so many epistles. And beneath it is just kind of a standard Latin cross with some sort of light shining behind it. Perfect. All right. Here's Stephen. Let you control that one.
Those little lumps, rocks.
I think it's a really elongated mandala. But down here, is that what you mean?
No, I was talking about the shoes right here.
Okay.
So, but I see them. So remember all that discussion we had about shoes and the color and everything? Because last year, Paul and Stephen have shoes,
Yeah.
and Peter doesn't.
I mean, it looked like he was in a watery place, so maybe it was just the landscape that,
And his feet were all pruny.
possibly, yeah. So I guess what did you notice in the Stephen panel? The rocks? Do you know what that's a reference to?
His martyrdom.
Yeah.
I was told long ago that those look like potatoes, and now I can't look at them without thinking of potatoes.
Fair.
Thanks, Betsy, now we all.
Now you'll all have that right.
Yeah.
If his feet appear to be backwards.
What's the association with the bucket park?
Great question.
There is a stone? Or it looks like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one thing that interested me is his hands position. It's also the orons, but Stephen is considered like the first deacon of the church. So wasn't an apostle, nor what would later also then become presbyters or priests. So deacons don't do this. And red is the symbol for martyrdom. So whenever you read a martyrs or venerate a martyr in a Eucharistic service, you would don the color red. So like the priests will wear their red vestments and stuff like that. So it's Holy Spirit or martyrdom.
He looks younger.
Hmm.
His face looks
Yeah.
younger.
Mhm.
How old was he?
We have no idea. Is there a reference to young men when they're calling the,
I don't know.
so it'd be Acts 6, end of 6 or start of 7 maybe? So I'll be honest, I don't know. We'll in a few slides, we're going to talk about Rundstrom as the artist for the transepts, which, if you can imagine, if you look at things on Google Maps, it looks like a cross, and so the transept is what makes the crossbar. I don't know if this is part of the Cartwright or the Rundstrom windows. I think you could make a really educated argument for either. If you remember, actually, let me cheat ahead real quick. So just found this picture today. I've gone through the archives 16 times and I've never found this picture. It fell out today. So this is St. Stephen's as it appeared on March 14th, 1954. First, notice no trees, or very, 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 very few trees. There's not a liquid amber in sight. And this is how the church first looked. So this is without the transept. So this is, I think, just maybe about 6 months after its dedication as a church. You can see the kind of English facade of the edge of the rectory, right? Well, I can see it here. It's hard to see there. And this is the road, the Aqua Vista that leads up to that East Bay Mud tank reservoir that's right up the hill there. I've never seen, I think I found this morning, that was the coolest picture. So what happens though is 8 years later, we build out this giant transept here. So we're going to get to these windows in a moment, but how the church used to be organized is there were 4 exterior doors, and then through those 4 doors, there were 4 matching doors at the sanctuary. And so on those 4 doors were these 4 prophets. Sorry, that took a while to explain. After the renovation of the sanctuary in the last 5 years, we saved the 2 interior, or the 2 middle doors, and then the doors that used to be the outside were cut down and are now right next to the lectern, so at the top of these stairs. So those are kind of where those windows were originally and where they are now. So we happen to have 4 prophets. So we have Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Elijah, and Isaiah. It's worth noting Elijah is the only one who never wrote, and yet he's got the book in his hand, which is interesting. If you remember Reverend Ryan's first sermon with us at St. Stephen's, it was the opening of Isaiah, where the angel brings a hot coal and cleanses his lips so that he can speak for God, or so that Isaiah feels confident speaking for God. So there, we can just kind of go through. So Jeremiah is holding this green scroll. So one of the things, Jeremiah had a really rough job. He was, oops, thank you. Did that go automatically?
Yeah.
Sorry. So Jeremiah had the unfortunate position in history to be the prophet sent right before the fall of Jerusalem, right? So Nebuchadnezzar and the forces of Babylon are laying siege, and he's trying to give a little bit of comfort, but also share the judgment of God with the people. One of the things Jeremiah does at God's command is he's told to buy property. And this was going to be a sign of hope that while the land outside of the city is being raided and razed by the forces of Nebuchadnezzar, this will be valuable property again one day. So that might be the deed to the property Jeremiah builds. He also has the symbol of rocks beneath him. There's a prophecy that part of Nebuchadnezzar, he was not only fighting Israel at the time, Judah at the time, he was also fighting the Egyptians. And so there's a prophecy of the stones with Jeremiah that he has to, Nebuchadnezzar will destroy the Egyptians and set up his own throne. Ezekiel stands above some portal gates. Ezekiel is one of the later prophets that starts to influence a lot of our messianic expectations of what will happen at the end of time and at the judgment of God. And so at the north portal gates, that's where God kind of breaks into the city. So this little white strip may be the glory of God, or it may just be the portals closing. Elijah stands above his chariot of fire. Remember, Elijah is one of two figures in the Old Testament who does not experience death. So he and Enoch are kind of raised up into the heavenly realm, and Elijah rides a chariot of fire to get there. And Isaiah is kind of standing above what Ryan and I think is a beacon. You want to say a little bit about how you...
I think it's a beacon because it's like a stone tower with a flame on top, and I can't remember the scripture passage, but there is...
I think it's Isaiah. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. I think it's like 38. So what I would imagine underneath Isaiah is, if you remember, is it in Return of the King, where Gandalf gets Pippin to light the first beacon, and then they go all the way through and they get to Rohan, right? So think of the beacons between Gondor and Rohan.
That not make it two towers?
I love the reason where the rings are.
No, because
Love it.
Merry and Pippin end at Isengard at the end of Two Towers.
Okay.
So it'd be, yeah. These are these are stained glass installations that are the two doors into the chapel. So if you're going from the choir robing room or the old narthex right into the chapel, these are there left and right. They read as King David and as Jesus of Nazareth. So David is wearing a crown, and then he's holding a lyre. Jesus is kind of in the classic teaching position. Just kind of the principal figures of the Old and New Testament. Any other observations? Yeah. Peace, yes, this is hippie Jesus, so, yeah. Thank you, Jan. These are the 6, I'd call them footballs, but now that we know they're mandorlas. These surround the double installations in the chapel. So if you start at the back of the chapel and work your way to the altar, we've got the Last Supper and Gethsemane, and then on either side is the St. Andrew's cross, and then the crosslet. Then the next installation, which I think is Lazarus and the feeding of the 5,000. We have the Jerusalem cross and the counter-embattled cross. So this was the cross that I could not figure out what it was. What's interesting about the counter-embattled cross is they have made some changes to it which likely reflect post-World War II sensitivities. So in a typical counter-embattled cross, all of the arms would end with a 90-degree right angle. Yeah, so this arm would actually finish facing this way, and this arm, and you're absolutely right. It could very easily be read as a swastika, and so I think it's perfectly reasonable that the artist would then kind of reverse and pinch those ends.
That swastika was originally believed
Yeah, it's a Sanskrit symbol, yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, even the Romans used it. If you
Yeah.
look at like Greek and Greco-Roman temples, they had the same symbol. It was a symbol of peace for them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the strange way in which the word Aryan gets, where we take something that we usually associate with the Indus River Valley, the lords there that kind of would write the holy books that would become the kind of the foundations for Hinduism. That's the Aryans was the name, was the word, Sanskrit word for lord. The Nazis kind of took it, bastardized it, and away they went. So the last two are the Tau cross, which is just, it's often associated with St. Francis. It kind of represents simplicity. The Jerusalem cross, I forgot to explain, shows how the gospel is going to all four corners of the world. I forgot the orb in my desk. I'm going to let you do the next one. I'm going to go get my orb.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll go from there.
So the next window?
Yeah. So here's so we rebuilt the chapel or the church in 62. And then you can go through that.
So this is the later guy who did all of the other stained glass that doesn't look like the same mandorah thing. So I think the stained glass in the library, the big archangel stained glass window above the old entryway. And this is a newspaper clipping that we found in the archives. I was the one who pointed this out when we were just thumbing through. I was like, oh, I think that's our guy. So yes, and the stuff in the bride's room, he also did. So there's another Wedding of Cana, a big Wedding of Cana window in there, and then the story of Ruth. So, but so this is the archangel. Well, so they only showed two, and they're honestly wrong. I think Uriel might be right, but Raphael is not ever depicted with a sword. But I think we could, it only shows two of the like seven. It's Uriel, different.
Aren't there seven there? 7 figures?
Yep.
Yeah.
But only, but these three don't have wings.
They're small.
Yeah, and this one doesn't have a halo. So, the Latin Christianity, 3 are invoked by name. Eastern Catholic Church is named 7. Anglican and Lutheran traditions only name 4. There's lots of, yeah, this is a confounding installation. Real quick, sorry. This is a relic from the Second Crusade. And by that, I mean it's a movie prop stolen from the movie, I just forgot the name of it, the Ridley Scott, Kingdom of Heaven. When you have a friend who works in Hollywood, sometimes you get free stuff. So this is a prop relic from the Kingdom of Heaven movie by Ridley Scott. And this is an orb, so it signifies the earth with kind of a cross over it, so it kind of shows the idea that Christ will rule the world. If you watch the coronation of King Charles, you got to see him hold an orb. If you have a young girl in your life 10 years ago and you were watching Frozen, right? Elsa also carries an orb and a staff when she's coronated. So it often is a representation of kind of kingly power over the earth. So, sorry to interrupt.
No worries. Yes, so,
Sorry.
I guess What else have you noticed in this picture? We don't have a good close-up of it. What?
Yeah, I can. These are all gonna be from today. We kind of go left to right.
So yes, one could assume Gabriel playing the horn, announcing that's Gabriel's thing. Again, this one with the sword says Raphael. Raphael never holds a sword. Saint Michael is the one who's always depicted as the archangel leading, the heavenly hosts into battle and stuff like that. Uriel is often depicted with a book. Here it looks like a Torah or a scroll of some sort. And then 2 shepherds.
Maybe the angel that guided the shepherds to Jesus.
It just says angels, not. The only archangels named in the Bible are Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In Gabriel's New Testament, Michael and Raphael are Enoch. And Tobit, right?
Yeah.
So not even considered canon by the Jewish people, but we have a weird relationship with the Apocrypha.
Is that a fish that the fellow in red is holding?
Yes.
Okay, it's
Which sometimes Raphael is associated with the fish.
Yeah.
But again, the rest of the depiction of Raphael is wrong. And then, did we lay claim on who the one with incense is?
Well, we kind of can, there's a little bit of, process of deduction. Yeah, I mean, like Brad Barber and I, we were confounded by this because nothing seems to make sense with who we're normally associated with. So Raphael, by process of elimination, would be this one. He's associated with healing, carrying a thurible, but Raphael is more commonly associated with the fish than with incense. Uriel, if this is a correct, is identified as the angel of salvation and the guardian of the dead. He is joined by 2 saints. He might be holding the scroll of life. It's the commonly associated imagery is not employed in this installation, so that's the kindest way I can say is I don't know what's going on, but we've got a lot of mixed signals. Do you want to talk about what you noticed about this guy, the wings?
Oh,
That was cool.
yeah, the wings are wrapped around the guy and the fish. I don't know why, but it is a cool little symbol. Yeah.
He was sheltering his wings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's, almost looks like it was food fish. Fish the bird.
I was taught in high school English, nothing is ever finished, it's just turned in at the deadline, so. Were you gonna say something? Sorry.
Just, it almost seems like there should be 2 other windows depicting the other archangels. Because I don't think the 2 on the side are actually archangels because they're identical. I would just say they're angels.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, this one's confounding. So this is at the opposite side of the transept. I keep doing it. So the archangels are on this side. This is the wedding at Cana in the bride's room. Yeah, just save me some dinner, would you? So And I apologize for the typo. This should read in loving memory of Russell Gilwey, not no loving memory. We'll get that corrected before that goes to print. So we in week 2, so last week we read the story of the wedding at Cana in John's gospel, so I didn't think we need to hear it again. But the thrust of the story is, and remember, weddings were multi-day affairs at this time and place. The wine is running out, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, is worried that the wine is about to run out, and with it the party. And so she turns to Jesus and says, hey, keep the party going, to steal a stand-up comedy bit. Jesus instructs the steward to fill up these giant 40-gallon vats of water that are used for purification. So we've got the servants kind of filling these jugs with water. The whole image is kind of set inside this bridal veil. Up at the top, we see wedding rings again. We see kind of a crown and a sun up there. So the whole thing is just kind of this gorgeous veil of light. We see Mary, the mother of Jesus here with a very unusual, and this installation probably dates to, I think it's even later than the church. I think it's like 1970. So we've got a kind of a very unusual halo with a cross behind it, behind Jesus.
I died.
Yeah. Anything else we notice? We've got these 2 figures or angels with swords. This was obviously taken at midday where the sun is coming streaming right in through the south-facing window, but it gives it a nice effect.
At the very top there too, there are a lot of circles.
Yeah. Wedding rings, I think.
It wouldn't have been wedding rings if it's ever Jesus. But maybe they are.
But it's a symbol for our brides.
Yeah.
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 Wasn't there a window that was Ruth and?
Oh, that's coming up next.
Next one.
Coming up next. Yep.
I thought it was in the bride's room.
It is.
It is.
Yep.
It is,
Yep.
on the other side.
Yep.
I always like the drapery that comes down from the rings.
Yeah.
Is that the veil that you were referring to?
Yeah, I think so. And there's the angel figures.
Is that a sword or a candle?
Candle. Yeah. We can go back though.
Not the foolish Christ.
There can, yes.
I must say, it so irks me that those vats cannot hold 30 gallons. They're not big enough.
And this is, so remember we never see Jesus turn the water into wine. The steward just takes out or the servants take out a bowl full and hand it to the steward, and it has become wine. So this is not to imply that Jesus reads as a Riesling or a Sauvignon Blanc. Although in the summer, I'm sure that would have been quite refreshing. Perfect. So this is the Ruth and Naomi. This is also in the bride's room. So this is right on this wall here, kind of looking out into the courtyard. It actually contains a quote from Scripture, for where thou goest, I will go. Thy people will be my people. So in the first panel, we see 3 women. In the red and blue, here is Naomi. Naomi has 2 daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. The family, there's a famine kind of comes over the land of Israel, and so this family moves to the region of Moab, where the family takes foreign daughters, the sons take foreign daughters. The 2 sons and Naomi's husband all die. So Naomi wants to return back to Israel alone. She tells her two daughters, stay here in Moab and take for yourselves Moabite husbands and continue to live your lives. Orpah does take her up on that offer, where Ruth says, no, where you go, I will go, thy people will be my people. I don't want to get too down this rabbit hole. There's two very different ways to read this story. The first is a heartwarming story of feminine integrity and a reconstitution of family. And if that is the way you would like to read it, I will not take that away from you. The other way to read this story is Naomi does not want to lug around a foreigner who is going to make her life harder. Carrying a foreign woman with her is just going to make things more difficult. It'll be harder to find work, harder to find anything. And so you could also hear in Naomi's voice a line of self-preservation. As we get to the end of the story, it also will read, is this a wonderful story about King David's lineage, or is this a hit piece accusing David of being of mixed ancestry? Both are good readings. To get back to the story, Naomi and Ruth think that their one possible way out of poverty is this Jewish tradition of what's called the kinsman redeemer, a cousin who will kind of marry a widow of someone in his family and kind of redeem her. And so they focus on this cousin Boaz as a marriage opportunity for Ruth. So the second panel, what Naomi tells Ruth to do is to go to the threshing floor, right? There's a strong protection for aliens living in the land in the Old Testament and for how to take care of people in poverty. So the instruction in the Torah is to not take the gleanings, right? So as you're cutting wheat, as you're binding it, if a little bit of wheat falls on the ground, you're not supposed to sweep it up. You're supposed to let those who are impoverished come and kind of carry up that wheat. It's a way for them to survive. They hatch a plan to get Boaz's interest. And so what happens is that Boaz does take Ruth as his wife. And in the second panel, they're handing back to Naomi the young child who is Obed, who will be King David's grandfather. So Obed is the father of Jesse. Jesse is the father of King David. So this is kind of as reducing the story of the book of Ruth into two panels as quickly as we can. So.
When you correct her, Oprah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put that out later. Ruth and Oprah.
You know, autocorrect is a really annoying thing, is all I'm going to say, because I did spell that correctly.
Well, I mean, that's Oprah's story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to blame that on autocorrect. I typed that correctly. So, because I read it and I was like, make sure, yeah. Oops. And I apologize.
You know what's good about this story? The Old Testament is as old as it is. It actually has stories about women and how they managed and what they were able to do. Like, oh gosh, the one who drove the nail and the
Judith.
who was it?
Judith.
Judith? Who was her? Anyway, so you hear these stories and like you just told 3 versions of it basically.
Yeah.
And what you can get out of it.
Yeah.
It gives us that.
Oh, yeah, no, there's, and what I love about it is that both stories are faithful to the text.
Well, and to humanity.
Yeah. And I think that's, why I think Jesus is so against divorce is because for women it was a sentence of poverty. And I think that's precisely why the Christian church has changed its stance on divorces. Divorce, if we can, what I think Jesus was doing in his prohibition of divorce was, we cannot let people be destitute. That's not how we want to live. And so I think he was trying to demonstrate care by not having women, because, I mean, this is everything awful about, this is every place where Christian views on sexuality muddy the waters and make things worse, right? So a married woman is less valuable than a chaste woman, right? Like it's all this awful stuff that just kind of gets read into sexism and misogyny. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. I think divorce, the church allows divorce now because we are able to care for both parties in the divorce to make sure that it is not a sentence of destitution like it may have been in Jesus's time. Yeah.
Is also on weddings in the Episcopal Church. This is one of the stories that's approved for, and
Yeah.
he shall be a they shall be a blessing, which is the same-sex marriage rite.
Yeah.
That the Episcopal Church produced in 2018.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was 1 gram for divorce.
Yeah, unfaithfulness, yeah, but you couldn't write the law of Moses would allow just a writ of divorce and it was off. Yeah. Okay, oops, somebody's on. So I saw in the chat, so I'm not sure, it just lists iPhone, but there was a question of where is this installed? It's installed in the bride's room, so if you need to use the restroom on the main sanctuary floor, it's just behind that door and the bride's room, so right at the top of the stairs. Thank you for the chat questions. If there's any others, let us know. We'll go forward. How many of us have seen this window before? Yeah. So if you go out these stairs, or go out this hallway and take the stairs up, this is kind of facing out to what I think we're increasingly calling the Trutner Stairs. So this is the music window. The thing to note, it's given in thanksgiving of William and Muriel Rundstrom. So I think this is given in thanksgiving for the stained glass artist himself. I'm going to let you walk us through this one because you were noticing a lot more than I was.
So I guess, can I have the pointer actually? The power is yours. So this is a treble clef, which is one the alto and soprano line in music, but also just in.
Or the melody.
Yeah, melody is usually there. But you also see a lyre at the bottom of the treble clef as well. I think this is a lute, but to me it actually reads more of a sitar than a lute, but
Even the Beatles were using this in 1972.
that's fair. The Beatles didn't exist in 72.
That's right.
But then there's also just like little notes of music. So I think that's a quarter note or an eighth note there, eighth note, quarter note there. So all the little things.
You notice the musical notes are sitting on a sort of approximation
yep.
of staff line.
Yeah.
Yep, staff lines there. So I guess you can actually probably read.
Yeah.
Stan will play it for you.
I was gonna say, we'll have Stan play this window for us, so.
This window is on the stairs, but then from the choir lobby,
Yeah.
upstairs to the choir.
Yeah. So the room right behind the bishop's chair is in a battlefield in St. Stephen's history. It's been the choir rehearsal room and the youth group room, and just like Antietam in the Civil War, it has changed hands back and forth many times over the decades. So, so this is in a space that at the time was being used for the musicians in the church and how they would get up to the sanctuary from their rehearsal space. We hope the war does not break out again. Yeah. All right, so now we're getting to the last two installations. So this is the first library window. It's in memory of Joseph Connolly Sr. So if you go into the library, this is looking directly south towards the classrooms. It's a mixture of Jewish and Christian symbols. So in the first panel, we have almost exclusively Jewish symbols. So we have the menorah, a scroll, the burning bush, and the Ten Commandments. In the middle window, I'm going to have Ryan explain that one because he was the one who found it.
So I texted my rabbi friend. So in the middle is a yod.
Oh, I said yef, sorry.
No worries. A yod and a triangle and a sun disk. I can read what Rabbi Gripper sent me. He used ChatGPT though, so its validity might be in question.
Is it, how do you,
Why?
okay, it's on J.
Yeah.
Yod, yeah.
It's this,
What were you going to say?
oh, nothing.
Okay. So a large triangle with a Hebrew letter yud inside, which may represent God's name or divine presence, which is part of the Yahweh. It's in that writing of it. A yellow sunburst or halo around the triangle symbolizes enlightenment or divine light. The Star of David at the bottom, widely recognized as a symbol of Judaism. The red and blue incorporate the design representing fire and water, or different aspects of Jewish faith. The geometric and abstract pattern goes to modern artistic feel while maintaining strong Jewish spiritual imagery.
The third panel is where we see predominantly Christian imagery. So we've got the Chi Rho, which is the initials for Jesus Christ. We've got the scallop, which is a symbol of St. James, often associated with Spain and the Camino Santiago. We've got a Bible, some grapes, and then the Alpha and the Omega. Yeah.
The circle with the triangle superimposed over it.
Mm-hmm.
That's got some other significances, doesn't it? Because it appears a lot of places, like on the US currency, if I remember, and sonics.
Yeah.
Sonic symbols, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, both Ryan and my ChatGPT research, it could be a veiled symbol of the Trinity, the triangle. We don't often read the Trinity as a triangle very often. It certainly, thank you for saying that, John. It does, especially with the glowing behind it. Let me just, so we're all on the same. Does anybody have a dollar bill on them? I'm feeling bougie because I've only got $5. Here we go. Well, so yeah, so here. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. Oh, while we're all holding out dollars, walk in love as Christ. Let our light so shine before others. So, John, that's a great reading. The sun disk behind it. Maybe it is a coded Masonic symbol.
Vinci code thing.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be God.
Oh.
Coeptus.
Copetus?
Yeah.
Yep.
Forgotten what it means. It's something like.
No, let's just. When in doubt, the literal translation is he has favored.
Yeah, so it's God has favored.
Yeah.
The ancients.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I met a woman, faculty member at Cal in the French department, and she is studying how Gregorian chant was echoing bar songs of the day. So it was kind of a parody. They're using, there's church musicians who are parodying popular tavern songs in their Christian hymnody. So there's lots of ways in which people try to be clever and sneak in symbols, right? I mean, look at Monday Morning Preacher, right? Does anyone recognize the symbol on Monday Morning Preacher? Yeah, but what football play is it? All right, let's go to Facebook.
Stars on the Banner is also a bar song.
It is? Okay.
Stars is popular too.
All right. Does anybody know what play that is on Monday Morning Preacher?
Just saying.
Come on, he's going out this way. I'll give you a hint. That guy's last name is Clark. It's The Catch. That's the play. The Niners
Those
beating.
were the accolades taken off for the.
No, that's The Catch. So, I've been subverting you all with my football fandom, so. All right.
Well, it was after all 30 years ago.
Well, yes, sadly. Yeah, we all make fun of the Cowboys for not winning a Super Bowl in eons, but the Niners won theirs the year before, so. Anyway, all right, let's go to the last panel. So this is called The Word. It doesn't have a dedication. And I think what we're referencing here is not just, so here we've got how the evolution of biblical transmission through the ages. So first we have the written word, and it was written by St. John. It's completely washed out, but if you go into the library, you can actually read this text. It says in the, so there's two books that start with that phrase. The first is Genesis, in the beginning. The second is the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, or the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So because this whole thing is entitled The Word, we think it, and we've got this clue, St. John. So we've got the Gospel of John here. Few hundred years later, we've got the printed word in Gutenberg, a little harder to read with the flowers behind it. I've probably bored you with this story. The Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale has a copy of the Gutenberg Bible. One of my Lutheran friends in seminary studied there every day, and then in his third year in seminary, they invited him to turn a page on the Gutenberg Bible. And I think that would beat meeting Jesus personally for a Lutheran, to actually touch the Gutenberg Bible. So we have it in written form, and then we've got a gramophone invented by Edison. I think we all kind of recognize that we need two more panels. We need transmitted over radio and digitized. So
And TV.
and TV.
So 3.
Yeah. So we can renew this window for the low cost of inserted a number here. But this is kind of the last piece of stained glass here at St. Stephen's, the library installation showing us, and fittingly in the library, how do we know the Word of God through written, through printed, and through recorded works. So we are just about finished. All that's left is we've got closing thoughts, and then we've got some advertisements. Any kind of closing thoughts? Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder if we had chosen an Old Testament book, if that would have been part of the story. I mean, the gospel was shared orally before it was written down. I never thought about that. That's a great idea. Thanks, Cindy. It's amazing the things we overlook sometimes. Great. Well, like I said earlier at the start of tonight, our goal is to take all of your observations, and again, I'm really grateful to all of you who have augmented our understanding by your own research, by talking to friends, by sharing your own insights. The goal is that we'll have this kind of bound as a self-guided tour so that people can visit online, see our stained glass, and if they're here in person, they can also look through and take their own tour. A couple of advertisements before I let you go. Tuesday night, we've got the Pancake Supper, Shrove Tuesday. I know we're marketing the Pancake Olympics just to kids, but I think Ryan will have an age group, but if you want to be part of the pancake discus throw, we'll just have a masters tournament kind of thing for you guys. But this is Tuesday night at 6. Then we've got Ash Wednesday the following night. And then the next thing I wanted to bring to your attention is our Lenten class called At the Crossroads, the meaning of the Passion Narratives. It's going to be a 5-week class, so Wednesdays starting a week after Ash Wednesday. The first one is going to be an introduction to the Passion Narratives in general, and introducing the idea that they are not only different in terms of details, right? So there's a question, does Jesus die when it is dark outside or when the sun is shining? 3 Gospels say one thing, John says another. What day on the Jewish calendar did Jesus die? 3 Gospels say one thing, John says another. What were the last words Jesus said? 2 Gospels say the same thing, the other 2 have totally different. So there's lots of differences. Those differences are interesting, but they are mostly peculiar. What we want to spend the time talking about is looking at Mark, looking at Matthew, looking at Luke, and looking at John. The differences are significant in what the cross means. The cross means something very different for Mark than for Luke and for John. There's some other details in Matthew that make kind of its own thing, but he really piggybacks on Mark 99% of the time. So this will be a chance for us to kind of learn the differences of what makes these passion narratives unique and why their meaning is so varied. It is the same story, right? All the details match. Jesus is tried by the Jewish authorities, handed over to Pilate, executed by the Romans. All those details are the same, but what that means is very, very different. So we hope you'll join us Wednesday nights in Lent for that. And really, thank you for everything you've brought to this class over the last 3 weeks. It's been one of my favorite classes to teach, and I hope that it's been fun for you because it absolutely has been a thrill for me. And thank you all so much for being here. So, yeah. Do you want to say anything to Kristen before she logs off?
Yeah.